Greetings, greetings. It's noon. It's the 19th of November. It's Friday. So what does that mean? That means Epic Cash Live. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming back. We have a packed show for you tonight. You see that handsome man, Mike Mumola, on screen. He's going to be joining us. And we have Yoga on the line and Max Freeman as well. Unfortunately, Enrique's not L. McMurphy, whatever he wants to call himself, is not able to be here. And so I'm just going to tee up this chart here. And Max or Yoga, why don't you tell us what we're looking at here with the Epic Cash versus the top 15 cryptocurrencies? This relates to the weekly project that Enrique presents. Whichever wants to go.
You know how much I love to talk about price. So Yoga, I'll let you handle that
one. Hot potato. Hot potato.
Securities and Exchange Commission. Let me teach you, get you my friend Yoga over here.
No, I'm going to start with this one because this one's easier. Everyone's familiar with it. And it is, I think it is sufficient to be able to back up that prior visual. So what Enrique did on September 3rd, 2021, he took a snapshot of what Epic Cash's price was, and then the top 15 coins and what their average was. And then he said, okay, I'm going to buy 1,000 coins with that. We're just going to check in weekly to see what the price would be. So we're all the way over here to 1119. So if you would have bought $1,000 of Epic Cash on the 3rd, today you would have almost $7,000, which is a 631% increase. If we take a look at BTC, the Lord and Savior of cryptocurrency, I guess, BTC, if you did the same, your portfolio, your $1,000 would be worth $1,176. So that's a 17.4% increase. So not a bad couple of months for Team Epic Cash. And we're going to continue to do this weekly. I'm going to stop screen sharing and we're going to get on to the next because we have so much to talk about. Yoga, I'd kind of like to tee you up if you don't mind. And I know you've been doing a lot of investigation on Bitcoin and BTC and maxis, and I'm just going to hand it to you. This is your movie here. It's going to be great.
Much love, Uncle. Much love. The graph. I mean, it's not that. We all saw this. It's been a pretty bloody couple of days in the market. Because the same usual stuff that the normal market manipulation that some of us are pretty jaded with, but some folks are still kind of get excited about. The usual suspects come out of the woodwork. With a booga 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 narrative. We got China. We got talking about negative things about BTC. We got India talking about BTC, and crypto in general. We got Monero getting delisted in UK by Kraken. We got American government trying to pass laws that are not enforceable, in regards to crypto, turning every operator, miner into a financial entity and so on and so on. And it's funny because I think it was India actually that kind of set the precedent in stupid when they were talking about like, let's tax every crypto transaction on the internet. And then somebody basically went and said, hey guys, you should maybe bone up on your math and the use of internet, before you try to do stuff like this. So at least you don't sound completely incompetent to the rest of the world. And US is having that glorious moment right now, where they're trying to just kind of like, wait, with this internet thing and this crypto thing, it's all they know is that they want to tax it somehow. They somehow they just want to reach into your pocket and and feel you, feel you. But it's fine, but it's just the Bitcoin folks. I don't hate on the Bitcoin at all. Okay, again, I jumped into that whole thing like in 2011 and I loved it, and it was cool until it got hijacked and it became BTC instead of Bitcoin. But I'm listening to like the maximalists. By the way, a lot of them kind of faded like over the last week because they were like really talking big when it was 66K. Now that when it bounced down to like 55K, 56K, a lot of them kind of like pulled back and they just basically the usual. And again, it's the usual thing. It's like the tide rises, the tide falls. When
Sure.
the tide falls, everybody like switches their narrative to like, hey,
Accumulating.
buy
We're
the dip.
accumulating.
Are you buying the dip? I'm buying the dip. It's like, okay, what's your favorite dip? I'm partial to sour cream and onion. Okay, but so we're all it's all about the dip. Okay, but what irritates me,
Dipshits. Sorry.
yikes, yeah.
Sorry.
What irritates me is like the arrogance and the lies that get mixed into the. And I understand this is crypto land, and folks kind of play fast and loose with stuff, but the same Bitcoin maxis that talk about respecting the financial institutions and respecting SEC and the law and everything else, they're lying with impunity. Like on YouTube, like big name guys are just lying with impunity about Bitcoin and about how it's oh god, yeah, it's not being rehypothecated at all. And I was like, well, yeah, it is. I mean, all these places that are creating Bitcoin out of thin air, it's like sure as hell it is. And they're comparing it to like, oh, gold. I'm sorry, because gold, it's a shiny metal. It's been around, for a number of years. And people accepted it as sort of the de facto currency for a couple of millennia. But yeah, at this point, it's like it's less cool than boomer stuff, right? It's like the super boomer stuff. Gold is super boomer, and Bitcoin is basically like being very smug about how, oh my god, look how we're outperforming this ancient, dinosaur of an asset, this ancient commodity, and look how like hot shit we are. And technology moves at this higher pace, and we got to get used to that. You got to get more hip, and this is the narrative they're driving. And I love it because to me, this narrative applies more to us than to them. This narrative applies more to Epic Cash than to them, because if they're saying like, well, Bitcoin is the newer tech than gold, so they're acknowledging the importance that the concept of newer technology plays. Well, then how come they're not acknowledging, other cryptos? And it's specifically Epic, because they're saying like, well, we're the only ones with immutable blockchain. First of all, let's add ish at the end of that. It's immutable ish blockchain, okay? Because this is an outright lie. They're saying like, well, compared to Ethereum, for example, compared to other cryptos, Bitcoin was never hacked. That's bullshit, because those of us who maybe because they didn't get into Bitcoin until a couple of years ago, they don't know this, but there was a significant event in Bitcoin history in 2010 where 184 billion, that's with a B, Bitcoin were minted. Okay, and the blockchain had to be rolled back, and Gavin Anderson and Satoshi Nakamoto themselves rolled back the freaking blockchain. Okay, and
nobody knows that. I mean,
and they're saying like, well, Ethereum with the Dow crisis, is like is the first time it happened. Bullshit. And anytime you try to confront them with facts, like Max and I did at this now famous, beatdown that the Bitcoin bros administered to us, their only answer is to either lie or talk louder than you.
Hey, Yoga, one of the guys on there was Jason Williams, and I listened to I don't know if you did or not, but I listened to Pomp interviewed him.
Yeah. Anthony Pompiano and Jason Williams. Yes.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it was kind of like at the end of the interview, his big selling point was, there are some smart people who I know in the future are working on technology where you're actually going to be able to borrow against your Bitcoin holdings. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of in our ecosystem over here.
Yeah, exactly.
We call it our holy trinity of
right.
Epicenter.
And you notice like the central philosophy that they're pitching, basically anything that Bitcoin does, even if they do stuff after the fact, okay, it's like the original idea. Like they're saying, oh my God, it's the original idea. Okay, and everybody else who is doing it better or faster or privately or fungibly or untaintably or unconfiscatably, well, all that stuff should be done on Bitcoin blockchain as a layer 2, layer 3, layer 5, because that shit got layers, as we've learned that before.
Yeah.
So we should check it out. and again, they're not acknowledging the fact that, and they can't acknowledge the fact because they're so heavily vested into it. And this is the thing, is like the disingenuousness and the lying and the disinformation is very financially driven. Okay, it's like they have very heavy investment into the tech, and they cannot talk about it not being private, that it's not fungible, that it's being rehypothecated. So I understand where they're coming at it from, but the lack of objectivity, like the CNBC interview with Saylor and who was the other guy? Samson Mile, the Blockstream guy, chief strategy officer from Blockstream, and they beat down this poor reporter. I mean, yeah, the girl came in bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and a little short on facts, and she said that there's limited supply of gold in the world and stuff like that. And Michael corrected her, rightly so. But then she did have a couple of relevant questions, and again, their answer is to talk louder and to ignore, to ignore the white elephants in the room. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Yoga, can I say something? A very wise man to that point, a very wise man recently told me it's difficult to get a man to understand something if his salary depends on his not understanding it.
Amen, Mike.
And that wise man is on the call, by the way.
Yep. No, it's true.
We'll call him Upton S. Freeman.
Yep, it's too true, and to me, look, I'm not trying to beat down Bitcoin, but what I'm looking for is an objective, quantifiable comparison. And if you just get away from the emotion and the BS and you look at it objectively, Epic Cash is literally better. It delivers on what Bitcoin was setting out to deliver. It delivers on all of those things, the decentralization, the equality, everything. Okay, except Bitcoin got hijacked and it moved away from that. Okay, 5 companies controlling all of Bitcoin networks is not really decentralization. Okay, the fact that Bitcoin is just as vulnerable to 51% attacks as other technologies that are doing proof of work.
I would say it's more.
Well, we can argue that. Yeah, you're right. Because honestly, because there's so
economically
much more money.
Insecure.
Yes, exactly.
It's bottlenecked through the capital markets. In the case of like Marathon and Riot and the Texas farms that are struggling to fill capacity, stuff like that. I don't take it for granted that all of the existing SHA-256 mining equipment needs to be rotated out of service over the next 24 to 36 months. Or the network is not secure. Or unless they make a change. So, you can only erode your own foundation for so long before there are consequences. And the fact when
people say like, oh, well, an attack is not economically feasible. Well, as we have a lawyer in the room, Cui bono, right? Who benefits? Who would benefit from something like this? Okay. Hypothetical scenario, really simple scenario. Okay. Somebody pushes the current Bitcoin miners, let's say one of the big 5 producers, okay, has enough money. They definitely have enough know-how and enough money, okay, to push the silicon, to using newer, thinner wafers, okay, newer, higher transistor density to create a generation of rigs that are capable to magnitude outperforming what's out there today, okay, and they can take a short position and essentially do a massive 51% attack against Bitcoin using their hardware. And Bob's your uncle.
And it wouldn't go down; it would go to 0. That would be the end.
It would essentially prove that it's not a secure asset. So there would be a massive sell-off, and there would be a chain reaction to that. What I'm saying is, from a technological standpoint, it's totally doable. And anybody talking louder than me, it doesn't change the facts that it's just technologically totally. We're not even talking about quantum computers or any of that stuff. We're talking like today's tech. Okay. Is doable. So again, it's not, to me, nobody, it's like, I don't want to get hung up on this. Okay. But we have to consider objectively and honestly the positives and the negatives of each asset, instead of just trying to get people whipped into like this blind rage and into this blind, propagandistic kind of indoctrination, and just say like, hey, go buy Bitcoin. Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
Quick, just kind of speaking of triggers, Mike, if you could come off mute, I would love to ask you a question, because I know you run with the big dog, so to speak, and you have a lot of friends in the space who are likely BTC maxis. And Max Freeman and I were on a phone with an influencer last week and having a good conversation and trying to explain the ecosystem and everything. And near the beginning, I'd commented to think about Epic Cash as Bitcoin perfected. It's secure HTTPS Bitcoin, if you will. And about 10 minutes into it, he said, if you're open for some feedback, he said, I would lose the Bitcoin perfected because it's a real turnoff. And at the time I was like, okay, duly noted. That's interesting. But as I've slept on it, Max, you can back me up on this. We had that conversation, but as I slept on it, I'm like, wait, why? Why should I back off on this? I mean, should we change our language?
Well, I think that's a great point. That's why I know those of us on this call say things differently. I call it BTC and not Bitcoin because in my eyes, it's a rug pull. We were promised flying cars and all we got was 140 characters. Ask yourself, what technology gets worse since 2009? What gets worse and more expensive? Because you didn't need to provide Coinbase 14 pieces of information. I mean, they're asking for, like, if you inherited money from a relative, what did your relative do for work and who did he get his money from? I mean, if you look at the level of intrusiveness for anything related to crypto, it's easier to use the old system. And that's specifically the point of things like infrastructure bill. And so if you have all these critical vulnerabilities at every stage, the economic, the technological, the regulatory, the compliance, the blah, 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 everywhere we go, that field is full of landmines and people are like, yay, come run across Squid Game. You know, it's ridiculous. Like, you can't sell the narrative from 2013 that doesn't apply anymore. And so does it rise to the level of fraud? I don't know. In many eyes, you know, perhaps it's not that clear yet, you know, but if you like Bitcoin, then you care about being able to do peer-to-peer transactions, not having to trust anyone and not having to go through a financial institution. And I challenge anyone doing business with these other networks to try to do business without engaging a financial institution and without having to trust anyone and without having to get those entities permission. So, you know, everybody who's talking about all the good attributes of cryptocurrency, the reality on the ground has moved on from the propaganda of the 2 winters ago offensive in the trenches of World War I, you know, whatever your time in history. And it's like, you know, the Soviet Union collapsed and nobody noticed. You want peer-to-peer electronic cash that's censorship resistant, and, you know, the way that Bitcoin was when it first came out and why it's still worth over $1 trillion. Well, that's what we've got here. Why don't you try it before you close your mind to it? And ultimately, everybody gets the price they deserve. So, you know, I don't like to talk price, but the one thing that I have publicly committed to since we were under a penny is BTC may crack 100 first, but we're going to get to 1 million first.
Yeah. My question was really related to, since you have, I presume, a lot of BTC maxis or people that you've just been in the space for a long time.
Yeah.
How do we approach them to where we don't offend them? And should we be measured in our words? What are your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think it goes back to the old adage that people buy on emotion, typically, right? And then beyond that, there's obviously a component of financial investment there. But so when you say it's Bitcoin perfected, I think it triggers an emotion in people like, wait a minute, what have I done with my investment? All of a sudden they're panicked. And so what I typically do is, you know, I'll introduce it with, I believe that you're successful because you have an open mind. And because you have an open mind, I want to talk to you about something.
I love that.
And then I talk about it. And so then when I introduce it, I agree with Max, BTC, not Bitcoin. But then I talk about it in terms of not necessarily Bitcoin perfected right out of the gate, like the punch in the face. It's more of, you know, when Bitcoin was created, it was fantastic. And that was in 2009. Unfortunately, there were technologies that didn't exist in 2009 that existed in 2019. And this is built on everything that Bitcoin was, or BTC is now. It's built on all of that with some tweaks and additions, technologically advanced, that weren't there before, that make it in many ways better than what existed then. And I want to show you what that is. And so that's a little more, I think it addresses the emotions more. Say again.
That
I'm
is a
sorry.
great approach. Thank you for that. I'm going to
you're welcome.
literally rewind after this is rendered and published. I'm going to rewind and watch that part and take notes because that was just beautifully presented.
Cool. Thanks.
I love that. Okay.
So
Yoga.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Uncle. So one thing I just kind of want to add to what Mark was saying is that, and I kind of started with that, maybe I need to unpack that a little bit, is that the pitch that Bitcoin used against the rest of the world works for Epic better when pitching against Bitcoin. Okay. Consider this. Okay. So because when comparing inflationary stuff like dollar to Bitcoin makes Bitcoin look good. Comparing stale commodities like gold to Bitcoin makes Bitcoin look good. It's just simply outperforming asset, right? It outperformed the dollar, it outperformed gold. Okay.
Yeah.
Comparing Bitcoin to Epic Cash makes Epic Cash look good. It's the same pitch. Okay. It's the same pitch with more bang. The technology works. It's just better tech. That's all it is. And it's better because it's newer. And instead of saying like, look, you did a horrible thing, Bitcoin didn't come to all these gold bugs and all the Wall Street people and said, you guys screwed yourselves by holding gold and by holding stocks. Okay. Because all your stocks are going to zero and all your gold is going to zero. No, Bitcoin, that was never the pitch. These guys, Jason Williams and a lot of these other guys, Michael Saylor, a lot of these guys went in there and they said, hey, try diversifying, put 1%, 2%, okay, of your investment into Bitcoin. Diversify. I mean, diversification is a very standard, strategy, right? So sample it, okay, try it. And the same thing works for Epic Cash. In the end, over time, you see, just like you saw with Enrique's graph, okay, that Epic Cash being very early in the price discovery stage, gains more over time because it starts so low. This is like, people discovered Bitcoin at 32 cents. Well, this is like you're discovering this new crypto that is very competitive, at 32 cents. And now this crypto is progressing just like Bitcoin progressed and it's increasing in value, et cetera, because Bitcoin, looking at this and comparing the technologies, Epic has the potential for explosive growth, and I'm not even talking about price. I'm talking about mass adoption. Okay,
right.
And with mass adoption in an environment that has scarcity, price will go up. I mean, the more people, that's pretty obvious, right? In a scarce environment with fixed supply, with increased use and increased users, price goes up. I mean, this is just a progression, a normal progression. You don't need to be a math major to understand that.
You mentioned pregame that Max really loved. I did too. Is delayed realization of scarcity. Can you explain that?
Yeah, the delayed realization of scarcity. I mean, for those of us who are, we're watching the market closely. We're in crypto. We're plugged in 24/7. And we see, price point move a penny up, move a penny down, and we hear the latest news like, oh, Epic is having a halving or had a halving. Sometimes we take it for granted that we're so plugged in, and we assume that everybody else is just as plugged in as we are. And like, for example, we're still, we had a halving weeks ago, and there's still people that are just now learning about the halving, even though we advertised it, even though it's in our white paper, even though it's been, preordained, if you will, at the, at the birth of Epic Cash. People are just now realizing this. So this is the delayed realization of scarcity. Information travels at different rates to different people, and that realization kicks in. So what we saw with Bitcoin halving, even with Bitcoin halvings, as hyped as they were, people did not react. Like normal people did not react to it right away. It took a time for the idea, not for the idea, but for the occurrence to percolate, for the realization of the occurrence to percolate through the society. And this is the same thing. Yeah. So this is the delayed realization of scarcity. People just now beginning to realize this, and interesting, since I love watching and listening to podcasts and watching, videos, with all the wonderful Bitcoin people, with the going anabolic guy and all the other guys. and what I like is also that they're kind of fear mongering a little bit about the CBDC, the central banking digital currency coming, and they're talking about how Bitcoin is really great hedge against CBDCs because because CBDCs can be manipulated and CBDCs can have censorship, and which is ironic and funny because that's like another huge white elephant in the room, because Bitcoin is the surveillance and censorship coin, and it's really no different than CBDC. It can be tainted, it could be it's ultimately traceable, and again,
it can be restricted.
And it can be restricted because it can be tainted. It's identifiable. No non-fungible currencies are all susceptible to that. Simple as that. And it's only because it's 2008 tech. It's old tech. It's 13-year-old tech. Okay. And anybody saying, well, you could be resolved in layers is either being disingenuous or lying, because layers have consequences, and it's ultimately the exits and entry points that are still totally trackable. And through regulation, that's being challenged even more and more. The technology that is inherently trackable will be trackable. Okay. And again, guys, they don't have an answer to that. They just talk louder than you. They make assertions like Bitcoin is the only crypto with capped supply. Bitcoin is the only crypto that is, will protect you from CBDC, and it's just not so.
Well, sorry, there's another point on that. Uncle, I don't know if you can pull it up. If you have it, maybe Mike, you can send it to Uncle. I'd like to spend the 51 seconds where Saul Omarova, an actual communist who is coming into a position of monetary authority, she actually vocalized on camera that the intent is to move all bank deposits to the Federal Reserve. And the reason to do that is so that they can more effectively confiscate the value contained in those accounts. So you don't need to worry about CBDC.
Isn't that Biden's shoplifting gal?
I'm not familiar with that, but it's Omarova it sends chills down my spine to listen to it, because it's like, it reminds me of Stalin's henchmen talking about liquidating the kulaks as a class, and then years later, 30 million Ukrainians are dead. I mean, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. The Great Reset, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. If you've ever wondered how the you will own nothing part would play out, you're now seeing it. And there is a defense. It's called Bitcoin, and there are many flavors of Bitcoin. Ours happens simply to be the best at avoiding that.
Yes. Thank you for that too. Okay. Yoga, is there anything else before we move on to the next topic?
No, I mean, you guys can move on to the next topic. I mean, to me, the whole point was really, look, in the final, kind of, if I want to summarize what I said, Epic is really, it really is just better than Bitcoin. It's not as widespread. That's the only thing where we're worse than Bitcoin, is that people don't know about us. Okay. And we don't command $1 trillion market cap. And those are functions of time, both of those functions of time. From a tech standpoint, we offer better tech. Okay, from a scarcity point, we match the scarcity. From actual cleanliness, if you will, we are untaintable because we're fully fungible. Every Epic coin, it's the purest crypto in terms of Satoshi's vision, if you will. Okay, without the traceability, without the ability to to control it. To stop it from crossing borders, to stop it from being confiscated by institutions by painting it as as good or bad or tainted coin. And in terms of the pitch, again, if you listen to Bitcoin maximalist pitch, and everywhere they say Bitcoin, you can substitute Epic Cash, and you would actually get a better, more honest value proposition. That's all I got to say.
I like that. Okay, I'm going to pivot, but I do want to respect Mike. I know you had a hard stop at 12:30, and I just see it's 12:30. So wanted to thank you for joining us and let you get on your next meeting.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Awesome,
you all.
Mike. Thank
Thanks,
you so
Max.
much.
Thanks, Yoga. Thanks.
We'll see.
Uncle, do you mind if I just knock out one real quick? I'm
please.
getting a lot of questions about the E1 token. So E1, as the logo implies, it's a single Epic coin inside a glass box. It's a wrapped Epic token, and it's wrapped in a very special way. If you're familiar with assets such as WBTC, which is the market leader, wrapped BTC from a company called BitGo, or REN BTC, which uses the REN network, E1 is a single Epic coin wrapped into an ERC20 token. And the way that we're doing that is very special because we're partnered with WAN Chain, and their nodes essentially break the key store up across their nodes using secure multi-party computation. And so if you wrap your BTC with BitGo and create WBTC, and they do a very brisk business. I haven't checked the market cap lately, but it's significant. It's a major piece of the financial infrastructure for that asset. If something happens to BitGo, then the asset underlying the token is in question, and that simply can't happen in the E1 design. And so again, we've found a weak spot in the existing landscape and found a way to harden it. And so E1 enables Epic to ride on other blockchains rails, and really is the first example of serious interoperability. So the things that are going to be accessible immediately post wrapping, there will be a small fee to wrap, no fee to unwrap. So if you're doing arbitrage and stuff, you can bake that in. So on the DEX and DeFi front, platforms such as Aave, 1inch, Balancer, Compound, SushiSwap, and Yearn, through fiat centralized exchanges and CeFi in general. I'm not saying that they'll go ahead and list us, certainly not right away, but it makes it infinitely easier for outfits such as Indacoin, Ramp, Simplex, Transact, and Wire that offer credit card purchases to hundreds of exchanges. They're kind of the white label providers. And so wrapping enables them to add it like just another ERC20 versus having to do a custom integration that is different than other types of blockchains, because Mimblewimble, at least as it is now, is still interactive. And so also you've got institutions at a policy level that simply will not list any asset that has privacy. And so specifically Coinbase and crypto.com are able to offer E1 that would never be able to offer Epic because their policies don't allow it. On the wallet side, MetaMask, Wallet Connect, Coinbase Wallet, Trust Wallet, basically any ERC20 wallet will work at that point. And then as far as interoperability, you'll be able to bridge over to Avalanche, Binance Smart Chain, Phantom, Moonriver, Polygon, WAN Chain, as well as plugging into XRP. So we don't have many partners, but the ones we have really punch above their weight. And WAN Chain has unique and special tech. So that is an example of the additional functionality that is not there today. But once it is, it just vastly opens the amount of people that can use Epic for useful things. And so we can also imagine what that's going to do to the value. I wanted to touch on the scarcity just briefly as well. Sure. In June of 2023, we're going to have the emission go from 4 per minute to 2 per minute. And so that's 2,880 coins a day. And then again, a little over 2 years later, in August of 2025, it's going to go to 1 per minute. So only 1,440 coins a day. 4 years, that's, under 4 years, that's not all that long for those of us who are a little older in life. That passes in the blink of an eye. And then really the big step, the big bang, I think, is June of 2028, because it goes from 1 per minute to 0.15 per minute. And so that's only 210 coins per day. So there's already over 10 billion devices that, with a few upgrades that we're working on and have been for a long time to enable mobile devices and tablets and things like that to come in, 10 billion devices splitting 200 coins a day. And they're $3 and you get a free ECR from them. So
hey, question.
Anyway,
question
yeah.
on the E1. Do you need ECR to be able to do that?
Yes.
The wrap. So let's talk then about an amazing opportunity right now, because we have a snapshot on December 25th where however many Epic Cash you hold, you will get a 1-to-1 snapshot. And so you will then have free ECR to do all of these things. You won't have to later go purchase it if you are acquiring Epic Cash now, between now and the end of the year. And right now, like with the entire market, there's been a bit of an Epic Cash retrace. And the way I looked at that is I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was getting really excited about acquiring more Epic Cash at $4 because I want more ECR in the snapshot. And now I'm like, I just got a discount. So it's like, instead of looking at this natural retrace as anything, negative, and you guys know better than me, you've been around the block, that there's so many things that go into when you see the price on CoinMarketCap being 178 and then you go try to buy it on Vite at 178, it's like at 225. You just can't do it. You can then buy 300 coins. It's ridiculous. So it's all white noise, everyone. But I just wanted to use this as an opportunity, Max, to perhaps just share a little bit about that snapshot and how that will work.
Sure. And also recent market updates. Shout out to the fine folks at new P2P trading groups that are set up specifically by Epic for people that want to buy with fiat. If you want to pay with PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle in the US, so there are some sellers in there who can help you. John D. Rocca Freeman is known to be trustworthy, and Europe, Litago is a good option. There's some other sellers that are interested in coming in, and we're developing a vetting process so that we can have a directory of trusted people that won't rip you off. So also Epic Hood, that targeting the younger market through Cash App and things like that. So shout out to Mike Puccinelli for the leadership there. So yeah, ECR is really the gift that keeps on giving in a number of ways. We had some drama. We probably should speak to that from people that were in our boat that no longer are for whatever reason. And they're saying, you need to give me control of your nuclear reactor. I want to sit there at the switches and I want to be able to turn it from 7 to 9 because I was here 6 months ago and this and that. Like, are you kidding me? So, we're doing our best to understand where everybody's coming from on this. But ultimately ECR is another ECR is the social layer. If Epic is the value transfer layer financially, then we need a social layer on top because this is powerful tech and we need to make sure it's used in the right way. And so we had a technical attack on March 12th with the value overflow incident. And then we had a social attack of people trying to social engineer in the fog of war and engineer a wealth transfer from others to them through a political process. And ECR is our only defense against that. So unapologetically, after a lot of soul searching, it is our tool to make the most of Epic. And if you're here today, we owe you, our fullest commitment. If you were here before, well, what does it take to get you back? And maybe this isn't the place for you. This is another element in our toolkit for success, and it is essential, and we're going to protect it.
Well, and what I liked about the decision was it just has rewarded those who have been adding value to the Epic blockchain, and still are, and it's just encouraging. I mean, it's so positive, and the community was overwhelmingly positive on this. So to me, it's rear view mirror, and we are looking at 12/25, and I'm inviting all of you right now today, please put it on your calendar. I know many will be with our families, and but I'm going to carve out from noon Eastern to 3 p.m. to have an open invitation, a holiday, an epic holiday party, if you will, to where I'm going to drop a Zoom link in right at the beginning, and anyone from anywhere in the world who wants to Zoom in and just say hello and celebrate. And it's just like, we're going to celebrate the holiday, just an epic community putting some faces with names, perhaps, or voices with names. You don't have to appear, but I just think it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're working towards that.
And look, it's a community project, okay? And honestly, the decision came first of all, the idea for the Snapshot redo came from the community, and it was a community decision that made the decision. You know what I mean? It's really, it's not, it's about as meritocratic and as egalitarian as possibly be. And the airdrop, the air grab snapshot is not happening tomorrow. It's happening, at a later point. So it gives people a chance to mine more Epic. It gives people a chance to buy more Epic. It gives people a chance to earn more Epic, through participation. And, some of the folks who, who kind of, were upset by it, they can still, they can still regain their position. They didn't have a big position to begin with, and they can participate. The community, didn't kick anybody out. It's everybody's decision, to come back and participate and earn more. This is what, Epic Fund Me is for. This is, we have channels for re-engaging for folks, who want to come back. And again, this is, there's X number of days before Christmas, folks. I mean, there's still time.
And also, like, let's not ignore the core point. You're saying, oh, you're screwing me. Well, wait a minute. If you sold, then by definition, you had a better opportunity that you valued more than being an Epic. And presumably you did very well on that. So, don't count the other man's profits. We're struggling over here to get from 30 cents to $3. And meanwhile, here today, gone tomorrow, tokens are up 8 million%, type of stuff. Seriously, Crimea River, come on, and in terms of like the moral fiber of what we're doing here, can I trust you? I mean, yeah, we're in the trust business. We are gonna be a fierce mother protecting our cubs, like a sea urchin. If you want to get at the meat inside, you're gonna have to fight through the spikes. Like, we're gonna do what it takes to protect our precious baby. And so, at the risk of being insensitive, I think this is fundamental. And for those who are afraid that we will compromise on the things that matter, the answer is no. We certainly won't, not on this or anything else.
And again, it's a community decision. So the community acts like an immune system. Okay, the culture of the community acts like an immune system. The community brought up the issue, the community voted, the community decided, and executed. That's it. It's about as fair. People like to throw the 4-letter F word, fair. It's about as fair as it gets.
Excellent. Can you just touch upon the ECR snapshot, on how that is going to work and the timing? Because I just want to make sure everyone's really clear that it's a snapshot, and then the ECR is not going to magically appear right there, I don't believe.
Correct.
There's going to be a process to be able to validate and all of that. But I just kind of want to set the table of expectation so that on the 26th, that we just don't have a whole different issue on our hands.
Right. So, Max, do you want me to talk about that?
Go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So basically, it's a two-part thing. Okay. So the snapshot itself is essentially, it's tied to a particular block height, to a particular, so that there is no nefarious actions, and that it's as foolproof as possible. Okay. So at a certain block height, at a certain point in time, there's going to be a like a Polaroid of the blockchain taking, and from that point, with exchanges like Vite, for example, it's really easy. Vite will have an ECR pair, and for every epic that you have with Vite, they will generate one ECR in your wallet. So there wouldn't be any action that you need to take.
So you don't do anything.
You don't do anything. Okay, just at a particular date, you'll just have Epic appear in your ECR appear in your Vite account. Okay.
Got it.
With on-chain wallets. So if you have Epic in your own wallet, that's not on an exchange, the process is going to be a little bit more involved. That there's going to be a like an app, or like a site, if you will, okay, where people will be able to enter a private key, and then that would get verified against the blockchain, on the snapshot.
Okay.
And then they would get that ECR based on that information. And this is that's why it's a two-part thing. First, the snapshot. I mean, it's basically like copying your chain data at a particular point, and then disconnecting that from the network so that it's not growing and changing after that, so positions don't change. So you can't just take a snapshot and then dump it and expect to be rewarded. So it's whatever you have in that account at that particular block height.
Right.
So there will be a manual component, and this is what we're working on right now, just making it as painless and as intuitive as possible. And I don't want to say like, well, if you guys want to just make it really simple, just dump everything into Vite. That's not really a thing, So you'll have optionality. If you're with Vite, it'll be this way. If you're
I think the people who are smart enough, and I mean that, and I'm not putting myself in that camp, there is a little bit of heavy lifting to be able to take your coins off of Vite and put them into a GUI wallet and such. And I just personally wasn't comfortable with messing with nodes on my router and things like that. But others are easy peasy. So for those people who do have them in their off Vite wallets, I guess, whatever you're going to propose as far as what you need to do, X, Y, and Z, I presume is going to be a layup.
Right. And again, I don't want to keep saying stay tuned, but we'll give more explanation on this, and we'll handhold people through this, because this is, we do realize a lot of our users are the crypto curious, that in Epic is their first crypto, or their second crypto, and they're not jaded like a lot of the veterans are. So we definitely are very aware of the UI UX element of this, that it needs to be, it doesn't need to be pretty, but it needs to be simple. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
And it also needs to work, because for those of us who are paying attention to the crisis situation unfolding on BSC, Cream got its fifth hack, Cream Finance, and is in the process of a meltdown. And so people take it for granted, but it's hard to make this stuff be secure and work right, and
software is
be
hard.
Smooth and all that. Yeah, I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So we're as impatient as everybody, perhaps more so. So we'll do it as fast as we can, but not at the risk of making any critical mistakes.
Everyone has a plan until Mike Tyson punches you in the face.
That's it. Yeah. And we want to make sure nobody gets punched in the face. So that's the plan.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I just have one final note, which is that as we've grown, like imagine 1,569 people living in close quarters, which is kind of us on our digital comments and all these different groups. Please keep it respectful. And if you have to say something hostile or that you may regret, then perhaps you should take that to DM rather than making all of us read that. And if you really think about it, maybe it shouldn't be said at all. And so there's part of the wonderful thing about our approach, our culture, is that we can have these people have these radically different views on things, and can find a meeting of the minds on that Epic is for them, and really transcend absolutely everything else. And so I in response to the question that I've been getting about what are our politics and what is our view on this and that, and should we go engage with Russell Brand or whoever, which is that Epic is free software and it's for everyone. Full stop. If you need money, it is for you. And the politics are a separate thing. Those are relations between humans, and it has no place here. I mean, it's unavoidable, but really we only do ourselves a disservice by letting anything extraneous fracture our strength. Our strength is in our network effects, which come through being united, at least on this one issue. And I think we give something up if we expect conformity on anything outside of scope. And so there's two great articles. One is on Medium, the one is on Substack. I think it's called Freeman Family Values and our vision, or our, it basically goes through our approach. I'll put the link together and consolidate them into one.
I was just reading it. I printed it out and I was reading it.
Yeah. So, and I think that's fundamental. Other networks like EOS, as an example, which does a lot of things right. It makes users agree to the rules of the network. If you want to play, you have to follow their idea of how you should participate in such system, which makes sense because it's delegated proof of stake. But proof of work isn't like that. And I think we do need to be consistent. And so if you want to join this discussion of what are our key values and what is our mission and purpose and what needs to necessarily stay outside of that, then join the DAO governance group, which is up to about 60 people, which warms my heart to see. And that's the place where if you're really passionate about this kind of stuff, jump in there and let's figure it out, because we get better. That's the key, is we get better through that hardening process of people seeing how passionate they are about a particular issue. I mean, the disagreements about whatever, as long as they're kept productive, they make us better, not worse. And we don't want to lose those as we grow.
Right. And Uncle, if I may just kind of add to that, and Max, I talked about this in my long 3-hour conversation with Uncle, and I revisited it a couple of times after that. But Epic in itself is a collection of cells. And each cell has its own unifying factor. Okay. And we're all different people, different backgrounds, different parts of the world, et cetera, et cetera. And the ability to get along in large groups is somewhat limited in humans by design, by biology, by whatever. There's this concept of Dunbar's number, which is essentially a cognitive limit to the number of people who can maintain stable social relationships. Okay, this is our tribe limit, if you will. Okay, and that number, depending on person's EQ or whatever, hovers somewhere around 150. Once you get past 150, things start getting unglued pretty fast. So, and this is why we don't try to laser our message. We're not trying to use the percrustic bed. If anybody remembers the Odyssey, Sinbad's Odyssey, Homer. Anyway, sorry. But yes. I'm that old.
The second word I'm going to have to look up. The other one was peccadillos that somebody wrote.
Oh, yikes. Peccadillo is a wonderful word. Yeah, very entertaining. So to my point is, look, we all don't have to agree. It would be actually boring and horribly boring. Okay, if we all agreed. Okay, and what I recommend, if somebody was saying like, well, you guys should do this or you should do that, first thing, look in the mirror and say like, well, shit, why shouldn't I do that? If like, instead of saying like, hey, you should reach out to this person or that person, well, if you have the time to suggest it, you have the time to reach out to the person. Okay. Take the initiative. Okay. Move the ball forward yourself. You'll get a greater sense of satisfaction and accomplishment out of it. Okay. And if you find a cell that you're in is not fitting your purpose, but you're still an Epic fan, build your own cell. Nobody is stopping you. Okay. Build your own community around you. Okay.
That's what I agree. And we have about 5 minutes, and I would just like to take the opportunity to I've been thinking a lot about this over the last 48 hours. And the way that feels right to me is we promote t.me/Epic Cash. That's the Epic Cash community. That's where people go. That is where you are welcome. That is where you can be quickly informed on, would you like to take a deep dive into crypto and blockchain technology and the ecosystem? Well, go to Freeman U. Are you real interested in mining? Well, we have a mining group. Are you here? Do you want to get into P2P trading? Well, we have a trading group. Hey, are you an artist? That's awesome. We have an artist group. Oh, you're a young person that's kind of one of these Robinhood persons that somebody from the Robinhood group said, come in. Welcome. You're awesome. This is where you can go. If you come in and you are, no matter what you are, or if there is it's almost like I think about going into a city, or not a city, a town, kind of a Midwestern town, and you have Main Street and you have this intersection, and it's just like everybody is welcome into this town. But then you can go down this road, hang a left, and then that can be over there where you have your people who are Epic Cash farming community, the Epic Cash pet community. They love them some pets and want to talk about pets. That's what I have loved about Epic Cash.
And if you don't see what fits you exactly,
create
start your own thing. Look, if you have a particular bent for a Turkish Gruyere cheese and nothing else interests you, okay, except for Epic, well, create a group of, cave grown Turkish Gruyere cheese and Epic, okay, and and take the ball and run with it, okay.
Yeah, it's just
nobody's stopping you. We have anarchists, we have capitalists, we have Marxists, we have people without labels, we have Christians, we have Jews, we have Muslims, we don't care what you do. And this is the ultimate freedom, the ultimate principle.
We've talked about that inclusivity, the non-hijacked term inclusivity.
Right.
We are,
and also where you don't impose your beliefs on other people. You don't have to piss in other people's Wheaties to validate yourself. Okay. And that's freedom. That's the purest concept of freedom.
That is. So I think that's just important because, personally, I mean, through my show drive, I mean, you see it right there. It says Uncle V, t.me. Does it say / Uncle Vigilante channel? No, it says t.me / Epic Cash. And it says that because that's where I really hope that new viewers will go and just get their start. So that is the place to where I just hope there is a big welcome mat out for everyone. And when new people come in and join and you're an Epic Cash community, welcome them, engage with them. I mean, it is so cool. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I have an entirely different relationship with my daughter, Alex, now because of Epic Cash, because she has transitioned her business from Twitter artists to transacting in Epic Cash on Telegram. And the process of doing that over the last month has just been a beautiful one for me. Now we talk more than we ever have. It is so cool to have something in common with my baby. You know what I mean? It's just so fun. And that's the magic. I know Becky Boo and her father are both into Epic Cash and can have that as a dinner conversation. The point being is it doesn't matter what demographic you are, what sex you are, what religion it's like you're just welcome. You're just welcome. So I want to welcome everyone formally to t.me / Epic Cash. And I want to thank you in the chat for joining us every Friday at noon. We're here like a good rash. And Max Freeman and Yoga Dude, I really appreciate you guys always being here on Fridays to join me. I'll give the last words to you guys to wrap things up.
Well, I don't know what kind of Friday habits you have that lead to rashes, but
every Friday, Max. Notice you said every Friday. So
yeah, I know that $20 is $20, right? But in honor of going anabolic, you'd mentioned dip earlier. I went to boarding school and they had these kids that would chew tobacco and spit it into red cups. And so when you mentioned that particular person, that's what I imagine.
Yeah, going anabolic.
I'll say something nicer. Look, I like to think that everything that I do, I try to do coming from a place of love. Okay, and honestly, part of it is is acceptance within the Epic community. So the idea behind Epic was truly egalitarian because we're fungible, because we are private, and really fungibility is the key here. Okay, there's that level of anonymity that resists encroachment by any particular ideology or by any particular control system, okay, like the government, like financial institutions, like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And no, I'm not talking about, you're lucky if you live in a place where you have quote unquote more benevolent government than other places, okay, but I'm talking about on a global scale, because not everybody lives in the US, not everybody lives in, et cetera. So this is the ethos of Epic, is that it is that freedom. It is that, coming from a place of love, that there is room and place for everybody to do their own thing and yet benefit from this unconfiscatable type of private property. So that's my kind of kumbaya.
Well, thank you. And everyone, I just want to let you know that Epic Cash is on sale right now. And I'm not being facetious either. I'm just saying that you have a great opportunity to acquire Epic Cash for the ECR Snapshot. I cannot express enough how important it is going to be to your financial future to be able to have that pair. And the fact that this snapshot exists, and you don't have to just go out and acquire ECR after the fact to be able to borrow against yourself with the bank of you that we've discussed. ECR is the magic that's going to make that happen. And the more Epic you have on 1225, the more ECR you're going to get. It's 1-to-1 math. So I'm just encouraging you all, please, I want you to come to the 1225 noon Eastern time Uncle V party, the Epic holiday party. And I want you to just be so happy about what you've accomplished over the last 5 weeks. And the fact that we're all here together, it's going to be awesome. So with that,